Part 3 of the build series. I actually just got back from a 100-mile drive in this thing. Finally getting a little further and further away from home. It performed flawlessly. It's about 90 degrees outside today, pretty high humidity. My IETs were like 110, which is not bad considering where the air filter is behind the headlight there. I need to cut some holes into the core support there so I get some more air in there, because it's in town. It creeps up. It'll get up into the high teens, maybe low 120s, which is just too hot. I'm not racing it, but you can feel it pulling timing. It's kind of sluggish. It doesn't like it much. So I'm going to see what I can do about that. But anyway, I just got back and it did great. No problems whatsoever, other than it's hot and I need air conditioning. And also, I'm going to put cruise control on this thing. So I've already been doing some digging anyway on that. So I found the stock that replaces the stock turn signal stock. So I'm going to order one of those up and get a couple relays and wire that in so that I can have cruise control, because this throttle pedal is so touchy that I was driving the people behind me nuts. The difference between 65 and 75 is just, basically just barely rocking your ankle. So I've got to figure that out. So it's because mile an hour will go as much as 10 miles an hour each direction, without even really trying. So I'm sure that's annoying to everybody, so I need cruise control. But anyway, in this part of the series, I wanted to talk about the driveline. This is probably the favorite part of everybody, and to me, it's been the most satisfying part. I mean, the suspension, the brakes, steering, everything else has been fun, but this one was the most satisfying for me. So this engine here, I actually bought on Facebook Marketplace. Actually, it wasn't on Marketplace, this is pre-Marketplace. I bought this engine 3 years ago on a local page that, actually the dyno tuner who tuned this thing, he has a page set up for buy and sell. I bought it on there, sight unseen, so I went up there and I looked at it. I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't know what I was looking at. At that time, I didn't know anything about these things. So I was like, sure, load it up, brought it home. It sat on a pallet for a year, and then I finally started taking it apart and cleaning it up. And it sat on the engine stand for another year, and then I finally broke down and tore it down completely last fall and found that it was actually in pretty good shape. So it is a 2003 out of a Denali XL. It was a wrecked deal. The truck had been evidently rear-ended, or so I'm told. The motor was fine, transmission, everything was fine. When I bought this thing, it literally came with half of a Denali too. I got the steering column at home. I've got the key for the ignition, all the modules for the entire car, the wiring harness for the entire car. I got the pedal assembly, the adjustable pedal assembly. I got literally everything. I've got boxes and boxes of this stuff that I'm probably never going to use, but I keep it around just because you never know. The modules, I'll probably pitch them all or sell them. But the wiring, it's nice to have good OEM wiring for projects. So I have just mountains of that stuff upstairs. Or if somebody I know needs it, they can, particular harness or whatever, I've got it. So I've got a couple buddies with that vintage Tahoes and Denali's and Escalades. So that's the engine. When I bought it, it came complete. The long block, everything complete minus an alternator. Did not have the alternator, which was strange, but who knows what the story is. So basically I took the heads off. Well, I disassembled the whole thing, took the heads off, shipped the heads to Texas Speed. They are their stage 1, I think, heads, where they, clean them, obviously, cause they look brand new. They do a valve job, a 5-angle valve job. They're CNC ported, both intake and exhaust. And I also had these decked 30 thousandths. So my compression's a little over 10 now. I figured when we were in there, it didn't cost any money to do it because they were going to deck the surface anyway, so we just decked a little more. And bumped the compression a little bit. So these are, the only thing I did not do on the heads was they have what they call a 2.5, I think it's what it's called, where they change out the valves, the stainless steel valves. And they're slightly bigger, and it literally only flowed like 6 CFM more. So for me, it wasn't worth the extra $500 for the valves because I'm not racing the thing, so I don't care if it has stainless steel valves or not. So these are the OEM valves. They've got the dual valve springs in there that are good for 660 lift. It has got the Texas Speed 224 cam in it, or 224R cam, which is kind of a baby cam. Nice cam, actually. It doesn't, drivability-wise, it's great. I don't really have any problem. It's got a little bit of a low put and idle, but nothing too crazy. LS7 lifters, hardened push rods that are 25 thousandths shorter since we decked the heads. It's got upgraded trunnion rockers. with the captured bearings in there, so they can't sprinkle the engine with bearings. So that's nice. And that's pretty much it. The bottom end is a stock rotating assembly. We took it apart and cleaned it and checked it, inspected it. It's got everything's fine. All it needed was a hone. So honed it out. It's got Cleveite bearings in it. I'm drawing a blank on the rings that are in it. I'll look that up and see what the rings are. But it's got all good parts in the bottom end. Put it back together. Stock intake manifold, stock throttle body. Obviously, I made the intake because I didn't have one, and in the stock they go the wrong way, right at the battery. And that's pretty much it for the motor. I mean, it's pretty stock. I mean, there's not a whole lot done to it. I do have the 2010 and up flex fuel 6-liter injectors off the trucks. They flow 51 pounds an hour. The stockers are like 24 pounds, and they're about out of duty cycle at stock. So we figured with this one making more power, we're going to need bigger injectors anyway. So I bought those. They were pretty cheap. I think they were like $125 for a set of 8 of them. Cheap. The one thing about those is they are the EV6 car style injector harness plug. So when I got this harness, I bought or I spec'd it with those injector plugs on it. No big deal. They can do it, or you can get the jumper harnesses to do it underneath all that. But that's pretty much it for the engine. It is stockish. I mean, there's really nothing crazy done to it. Basically, just a basic heads cam motor. That's it. And these things love it. I mean, this thing made close to 500 horsepower just with those mods. So it doesn't take much to get these things excited. So I'm extremely happy with it. The drivability of this thing's amazing. I mean, like I say, I just went out and drove 100 miles on it, and it was nothing. It just cruised along, and I just ate it up. I mean, it was sipping gas. So I'm about through my second tank of gas, so I'm going to see what my mileage is on this one. Hopefully it's pretty good. It does have a stall cam in it, or stall converter in it, so that will eat up some of the mileage. But that's pretty much it for the motor. Transmission is actually a 2004. It is a 480. I bought it actually off of a fellow C10 guy, and he had bought it from a local big rig tire company off one of their service trucks. I guess I don't know what the deal with it was, but he got it. It has 140,000 miles on it, I think. I went ahead and had it rebuilt. The guy who tore it apart and rebuilt it said actually it looked fine, didn't really need it, but we went ahead and rebuilt it, put all new frictions and steels and everything in it. It does have the Transgo HD2 kit in it, which in hindsight I probably wouldn't have done because it shifts a little more aggressive than I like. I'm actually going to take it back to him, and he's going to adjust the 1-2 shift because it is like bone-shattering hard. And the lockup is crazy hard. If you have any more than like just a tiny bit of throttle in it, it locks hard. So we're going to see if we can't sort those. But that's it for the transmission. It's bone stock other than that. So nothing crazy inside there, no racing parts, nothing like that. Drive shaft is actually the drive shaft that came in this truck when I bought it. This truck had a 350 with a turbo 400 behind it. So I actually just took that to my local drive shaft shop. They've shortened it. I've got a new transmission slip yoke on it. And I've got new U-joints front and rear. And it bolts right onto the stock rear end. So that was an easy swap. Trying to think of anything else under here that's... all the accessories are all AC Delco parts. I went ahead and replaced the water pump because I didn't know the mileage or anything about it. Had to buy an alternator. I had to put a new power steering pump on it. Again, I just didn't know how many miles were on things, and they weren't very expensive. The power steering pump, they're like $120. It's a lot of money, but for insurance, I didn't want to mess with trying to make the old one work if it had crap in it or whatever, because I had put a brand new redhead steering box down there. I didn't want to junk it up, so for $120 or whatever, I went ahead and did it. Alternator, or button alternator, obviously, water pump, thermostat, and then I bought, this one was broken when I bought it. One of the ribs was chipped off, so I got a new one of those, new idler pulley there, tensioner pulley, and then idler pulley. Went ahead and bought that. And then the hoses, I'm going to go ahead and link these in the description. I found these online. I'm not going to take credit for this because I did not figure these out. So there's 2 Gates hoses, upper and lower. I'll put the part numbers for those that work with a radiator with, so this is an entropy radiator. Both of the inlet and outlet are on the same side, on the passenger side here. Normally in these trucks, the hose comes out this way and goes over this way and then this side of the tank. Well, with these, they go over here. You can buy them either way, but for this setup, I'll put the link for the hoses there. Made it real simple. As for the radiator, this is an Entropy LSX radiator. Now I'm gonna warn you, this part is very expensive. I splurged on this and the fuel tank, which I'll talk about here in a minute, because I didn't want to do it again. I had read good, bad, and different reviews about every single type of radiator for these things. A lot of guys just use a stock radiator. The radiator that was in this thing was not actually for a C10, and it was kind of cobbled in here, so I pitched that. It was kind of I don't know what it was. It was a plastic junk box. So I splurged on this, and I don't regret it one bit. This thing is amazing. This thing holds temp all day long. Even when it's 105 degrees outside, it holds temp. No problem. So all of the inlet and outlets over here, it's got the steam vent. It's got actually an additional port. You probably can't see it, but right below the inlet here, it's got a port for a temperature sender, and it's also got removable. You might be able to see it right there. There's an anode down there that you can change out, a sacrificial anode. And then it's a cross flow, obviously. So it's just got intakes over here. It's got the built-in trans cooler, which I'm actually using. And then I just got just a generic Summit overflow tank here on this side, and then I just have it connected over there. Pretty simple setup. This radiator, amazing. I cannot give this thing enough praise. Great people too. When you call them, they answer all of your questions. They're great people. It's a little small shop outside of Chicago. Everything's handmade, all TIG welded aluminum. It's awesome. And then on the cooling front, we've also got the transmission cooler out here. So the way I have it hooked up is the way it does stock, where it comes out of the transmission, goes in the bottom of the, well, I should say that. I can't tell. It goes in the top here of the cooling for the transmission and out the bottom, and then I have it coming around and going in the top and out the bottom. That's the way they did stock. That's the way I did it. This is a Derale cooler. I'll put the link in the description. I made some brackets. I just bought some aluminum stock and made some brackets that bolted to the core support here. Simple. I just painted it up, put some speed holes in there just because I got a brand new drill press to play around with, so I went ahead and put some speed holes in there. But this works great. This thing, in conjunction with that, this thing, when it's 105 degrees in traffic, and I've tested this transmission will never get over 160 degrees, which is fantastic. So the way I had the fans wired right now, and I'm going to switch this winter, is my number one fan is here, which is basically always running. It's set to come on at like 180, which is probably still a little too low. I need to probably adjust it up closer to 190. So this fan is always running. So it's always drawing air through this side of the radiator, which cools that. Works out perfect. So this winter, I'm actually going to rewire my fans so that both of them come on at half speed as my first trigger. And then when my second trigger comes on, they both go full speed. And that's a 3-wire setup. I'll throw a link in the description, see if I can't find something online to kind of describe how that 3-relay setup works. But it's pretty trick. And then also when I add air conditioning to this thing, which is coming up, it'll try and tie into that too, so that when the air conditioner signals that it needs cooling, it'll trigger that on, and they'll both go from low to both go to high. So pretty trick. I should have done that from the get-go. I just honestly didn't even think about it, but pretty trick because these fans are really loud. Not that it doesn't really bother me, but I just think it'd be nice if they had flow on both sides of the radiator as opposed to one and then two. But neither here nor there. But yeah, that's pretty much it as long as the driveline goes. Simple swap. This thing literally bolted in. I'm running. Let me get the flashlight here. I'm running the stock stands. I've got energy suspension urethane mounts, which yes, they are tight, and you do feel the engine, but I'm okay with that. It's not a daily driver. And then I've got LSX Innovations adapter plates down there. I chose him just because he's kind of a one-man band that does it like literally out of his garage. Sells some pretty nice parts. Quality was great. Fasteners were great. Everything seemed to be okay. No problems there. So I also have an energy suspension mount on the transmission crossmember, which is, you can feel that one when it shifts. But that's sitting on top of an early Classic Enterprises transmission crossmember. And what that one does is it's for swaps. So it will lower the tail end of the transmission down. So when you have this thing, when you lower the whole truck, the especially on a, I gotta get rid of that, that was hot. On a turn that off real quick. That sucker's hot. On a lower truck with these things is the rear end kind of rocks like this, and the pinion angle starts increasing because it's pointing the nose of that thing down. So what you need to do here, or up, I should say, it goes up. Yeah, it goes up. So to get that to line up right, you have to drop the tail of the transmission down. So this transmission crossmember allows for the transmission to sit further down than a stock transmission crossmember, so that it gets you closer to your pinion angle, so you don't have to shim the rear end as much. I ended up being okay. I didn't need to shim it. I actually had to shim the transmission up like 3/16 or something like that. So I made some spacers to get that thing up, so my pinion angle's great, so I don't have any vibrations or anything like that. But easy peasy. I mean, honestly, this is the easiest of everything I've built on this truck and other project. The bolt in the engine and driveline of this thing was the easiest. There was really, everything's been so thought out. I mean, you can buy everything from this thing, buy everything so you can bolt this thing in. And there's so much information out there. But headers, I am trying out the Speed Engineering headers. They are Chinese, and he makes he's not bashful about that. He lets you know up front. But everybody swears by them. So I figured for $125 for the set, and that's correct. That is for the set. I think they've actually come up a little bit in price, but these things are fantastic. They come with a V-band on the collector. These are the shorties. They do make a long tube. I bought the shorties just because I was concerned about how far the collector is going to hang down. Being lowered, I didn't want to get it too close to the ground. It sounds like they probably would have been all right, but I bought these just so I made sure I didn't have any ground clearance issues. But all stainless steel, big thick flanges. So far, great. No leaks, no problems. Exhaust is a MagnaFlow kit that I bought. I love the sound of the exhaust, but this MagnaFlow kit is garbage. I don't know what they made it for. It's like a universal fits like 47 years of trucks. I don't know, but it didn't fit worth a crap. I've got it on there now just so I can drive it, but this winter I'm going to cut it all apart and just use all the bits and pieces and custom make an entire exhaust for this thing. I ran into problems where the X-pipe on these trucks, I don't know if any of you guys have ever looked under these trucks, you would think that there's plenty of room for X-pipe, but there's not. This truck, or the engine and transmission sits so low, and where the drive shaft comes out and goes to the rear end, there's just literally no room to put an X-pipe. So I'm going to see what I can do to maybe fit an X-pipe in here and tuck the exhaust back up inside the frame rails. It sounds great, just horrible packaging. And all the other MagnaFlow kits I've seen and helped install, they fit fine. And this one is it's terrible. I don't know what the heck they were thinking, but whatever. Sounds great. I'll make it work. It's part of hot rodding, I guess. Trying to think here. Oh, fuel system. So the fuel system on this thing, this was another one of my purchases that, it stung. And it cost a lot, but it was worth it. So underneath the bed here, I have a Boyd's Welding aluminum tank. Now, these are made for these trucks. They bolt in 100% on the bottom of the frame and line up and just work. Everything clears. It's another one of those things. It's like literally a one-man band guy down in Florida. He makes these things, and they are amazing, top notch. When I bought it, it came with an Aeromotive 340 Stealth pump, so I got plenty of pump. It's got all the fittings. Everything's just really thought out. It's got a sender, a level sender. It's got the whole nine. So from there, I just have -6 lines going from the supply and return, go all the way up, and then right under the cab here, I have a Aeromotive fuel pressure, or Aeromotive. What am I trying to say here? Fuel filter. I got a 10 micron filter here that goes up, and then it feeds the rail. And then I have a return style, so I've got a supply and a return on the back here, and I've got all the good Russell fittings with the screw in, not the clip-on ones on the rail, because they make ones that just like slide on and clip on, but you just see horror stories, those things flying off and pumping fuel over the hot engine. That's no good. It's going to burn the thing down. So I've got the ones that screw on so that we don't have that problem. Supply and return, it's all Russell. Everything's a Russell on this thing as far as AN on the fuel and the trans side. Just worked. Great stuff. Fairly inexpensive. Yeah, that's about all I can say about that. I'm trying to think of anything else on the engine and driveline here. There was so much. I think that's about it. So, again, I love this. This engine I have no regrets. No regrets. I know when I was spending the money to get the heads done and buying a cam and this and that and the other, I was like, man, is this really worth it? But this thing moves. It flat moves. When you want it, when you get on it, it goes. And when you're driving around town, it just putters right along, gets great mileage. It's great. Smooth as can be. Put a baby cam in it, you're good to go. You put the big cams in it, it's going to go, but you're not going to like it around town. I've done that big cam route before, and for a cruiser, it's just not worth it. But yeah, that's about it. So if there's anything I missed, which is probably possible, please let me know in the description or the comments down below. I'm going to try to link as many of the parts and pieces and intricate little details as I can in the description below about all the parts I used, any tips and tricks I learned along the way, or people had told me along the way. And yeah, just kind of how it all works. So I appreciate everybody watching. And like I say, please share with your local car clubs, your friends, your family, anybody. We're getting closer and closer to 1,000 subscribers. And that's just amazing. I can't thank you all enough for that. So please like and subscribe if you haven't, or think about subscribing if you'd like to. I'd love to hear from you guys. So please drop comments below on anything about this build, really anything, and we can. I'll do my best to answer, point you in the right direction, or I'll see if I can find somebody who can help you out. So YouTube's been great to me. Everybody's been great to me. I've gotten tons of emails and messages from people about try this instead of that, or do this, or have you thought about this, and all great stuff, all great ideas. So I'm hoping I can give back a little bit, and we'll just see how it goes. So anyway, I'm going to quit rambling now about this. So that should be that's about the end of the build series here. I'm going to actually get back into doing some more projects on this truck. First up being cruise control, because it needs it. So look for those videos here pretty quick. And that's it for today. I hope everybody has a good Sunday, and we will see you next time.